Welcome back to another podcast here in the Ram's Den. Welcome back, everybody. Today, Lawrence, we've got an interesting topic, as we always have. Maybe say hello, make sure people can hear you, make sure we're all working.
How's everyone doing? I hope everyone is doing okay.
Great. I'm sure we're all good today. I'm sure there's not going to be any technical issues this time around. But I've said it now, so of course there's going to be. Of course there is. So, all right. Today, the topic is, well, it's in the title, how narcissism or narcissists have created a society of wimps. And then with the thumbnail, it's why are people such... I won't say it yet. Later on in the stream, we'll say it because you know, the first couple of minutes of the stream, you guys know how it is with YouTube. We got to be careful in the first couple of minutes. And this is a topic I brought up. It's my topic that I put to Lawrence. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is I've become aware over the years of a growing number of people who have made themselves professional victims. Now, there are the obvious cases of this, like the one in the thumbnail, but there are also less obvious cases of just your average people around you. It just seems like people are becoming more and more soft, and I think a big part of that, the reason for that, is a growth in narcissism or a growth in acceptance of narcissism and encouragement of narcissism. And I'm going to explain why I think that today, and I'm going to get Lawrence's thoughts as well. We're going to bat that back and forth and see where we go with it. The original concept was about self-care, though, wasn't it? We were saying, has self-care gone too far? But then when I dug deeper into what do I mean by that, then I found myself landing on, well, it's narcissism, basically. That's what's gone too far. So I guess I'll lay out the basics of why I think this and give you the mic after that, and then we'll just kind of kick off and go from there. Sound all right?
While you're just doing an intro as well, can you actually explain what narcissism is? Because I actually don't. As far as I'm aware, it's like just like self-aggrandization or whatever the word is.
It's an obsession with oneself. And usually it comes with a dismissal of the feelings and thoughts and feelings of others. Right. And an obsession with how you think and how you feel. That's the most vague definition of it, I suppose. But if you look at the official definition, it's not far off from that. It's basically what I said. So yeah, pretty much everyone in the world has narcissistic tendencies, including YouTubers like you and I. We probably exhibit a lot more narcissistic tendencies. You have to. If you're willing to turn a camera on and talk to the camera and assume people want to hear what you have to say, you've got to have a little bit of narcissism. So yeah, we'll get to, at the end of the video today, we'll say whether or not what we talk about today can be good as well as bad. So we'll come to that. And there are examples where it can be good. But I think it's mostly bad, spoiler. So what have I noticed then? So specifically, I'm a vegan. Lawrence is a vegan. We're both in vegan and animal rights activism communities. My take on this started actually here. I started noticing, say 5 or 6 years ago when I started all this, very rarely did I ever hear anybody say, I'm burnt out, or it's too much for me, I need a break, or I'm overwhelmed, or... I'm just going to go and look after myself, self-care, right? That wasn't really being said. And then about a year or so into the activism world, these words started popping up frequently, very frequently. And now, present day, it feels like you can't sneeze without someone pointing out that you're not looking after yourself or you should go and take a break. It's gone to the point where, in my opinion, it's extremely oversensitive in our community alone. And that's really bad because, of course, what we do is hard. Of course, it's animal rights is difficult, right? You need to be resilient. You can't be just throwing the towel in every time you have a bad day. If you do, we're going to end up with nobody fighting for anything in our world. So that's one example. The other examples I would give would be with just an epidemic of people turning themselves into victims off the back of having to do things that they don't like. I've noticed a hell of a lot of this. People who get upset because they have to go and do a job they didn't want to do, or they have to do the job, just a job. They don't like their job. They don't like their boss. These were things back in the day that were just a given. With pretty much any job you have, you're not going to like it, and you're probably not going to get on with your boss. That's life. You don't do it because you love it. You do it because you need to pay the bills. Suck it up and just get on with it. Unless there's abuse or anything, right? nowadays people quit their job because they don't like their boss or they don't like the job. It feels like the resilience has gone there, and I think that's a bad thing. I think a lack of resilience is bad, not just in those circumstances, but this is a symptom of it. But overall, it's terrible for society that people are so not unresilient. That's not a word, is it? Whatever. I don't know what the word is. Just not resilient. And a couple more examples to give you. So the UK and Canada, we have now the implementation of what's called hate crimes. And by the way, Lawrence, you're not quite in the middle. Could you maybe like shift it to your left a little bit? No, other way. Is it possible? Just because it's just bugging my perfectionism. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. I could have done it with here, but it would have put me off my... All right. So we have hate crimes now in the UK and Canada, right? And these are good if someone's trying to incite violence. So yeah, we have they can go out and make arrests and talk to people, and the police can go sort it out. Or if physical attacks based on someone's whatever, right? Religion, ethnicity. This is good that these things exist, right? But it's not how it's being applied. How it's actually mostly being applied is when people make a tweet or an Instagram post or a Facebook post where they say something like, I don't know, I've seen some people, some police visited someone's house because she said something about trans people. She's something like trans women and men. Someone posted that, right? And the police visited the house and said, this is a hate crime. I mean, what? So offending someone is a hate crime? That's not calling for violence. That's not, it's just an opinion. It's not a nice opinion. Don't get me wrong. It's why post that? You're trying to offend people, right? Fine. But why would the police be involved with that? So what, if a trans person is offended, that's a hate crime? You know, this is, it's that to me is madness. And in Canada, you can actually, the law in Canada will lead you to be fined, and potentially, I believe if you do it enough times, you could end up with prison time for misgendering someone. Again, the police are intervening because all misgendering is offending someone. Now, of course, you're a douchebag if you do it on purpose. Why would you do it on purpose? If you don't want to call somebody a he when they want to be called a he, call them by their name. Don't call them a she. There's simple workarounds if you just don't want to do it. Just call them by their name. Simple, right? So yeah, I get it, but the police come into your door to tell you you've committed a crime by misgendering? Since when did hurting someone's feelings become a police matter or any kind of real serious matter? Two other examples for you, and then I'll let you kick off with your thoughts. So if you scroll through Twitter, it won't be long before you see someone having a complete meltdown over words. Right, either the wrong word's been used to describe something or someone, and a good example of that would be words that changed very recently. Like now we have to say person of color instead of colored person, right? But if you say colored person, you're gonna people are gonna be very upset. They're gonna try and get you cancelled, try and make you lose your job. They're gonna try and make you feel terrible and come after you. Potentially try, if you're in the UK or Canada, try and get the police to come visit your house. Tell you can't say that. It's POC now. You can't say colored. Right. So there's that as well. And then one more thing: sick days. So in the UK specifically, this year has been the highest number of sick days taken on average in the last 10 years. And with most people citing the reason they've taken a sick day as stress. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right. In 2023, that's it. People are too stressed, apparently. So this is where all my thoughts on this are coming from. That people are no longer resilient, that they are narcissists mostly. It's all narcissistic behavior. I'm upset, I'm offended, therefore I should be treated as a victim and you should be treated as a perpetrator. People, how many minutes are we in now? 9 minutes in, we're safe. People are pussies. People are acting like massive pussies, to be honest. So before we get on to how, next what we'll get on to is how we got here and how do we think this happened and stuff like that. We'll move on to why we think this is happening. But what are your thoughts on all that so far? What's your take?
I think... Well, so most of the stuff that I've noted down to talk about is more about how the proposed solution is perhaps making the problem. So the solution of like self-care in certain forms is perhaps making the problem worse rather than actually being a solution as it's proposed.
Right.
But just to touch on like the issue itself for a bit longer, it's I haven't really got anything more to add in terms of fleshing out the actual issue as you've laid out, but just some like interesting things to think about is like, it would be interesting to know what the like trajectories of like sick days for stress are in different countries. Like,
Right.
I know not every country is going to keep a record of this, obviously,
I
but
have
it
it.
would be, you what?
I have it. I prepped for this.
Oh, really?
Yep. So
Okay,
let me read this out for you. So, huh?
No, I just said Rwanda as or whatever.
Right. So listen. So, guys, you can check this out if you want to follow along. I'm not going to put it up on the screen because it's a bit of a technical nightmare right now with the way we got this set up. But just Google how sick day culture differs around the world. There's a nice graph. They interviewed people and asked them, have you taken a sick leave in the last 12 months? And so it went like this. People who have not taken a sick day in the last 12 months, that's what they voted for. So that's what they were looking for. Who has not taken a sick day in the last 12 months? So at the highest, so 51% of Koreans, South Koreans, took no sick days in the last 12 months. Okay. 45% of Japanese people took no sick days in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
39% of Spanish people, which is very surprising to me because honestly, I've worked in Spain. Spanish people are fucking lazy. Sorry if you're Spanish, but you guys are all mañana. Everything is tomorrow and it is a nightmare. So I'm surprised there's not more there, but 39% Spain. And then it drops 34%. And then for France, then England is 27%. Only 27% of people hadn't taken a sick day. So over 70% of British people took a sick day in the last 12 months. US is even worse, 23%. Canada also 23%. And then Sweden, 22%. Germany, 20%. And the worst of the list that they looked at was Australia with 14%. So what that tells you is the Western world is overall taking lots of sick days. And the Asian world, or at least Korea, Japan, South Korea, Japan, Eastern Asian world are taking significantly less. So that answers your question. Just based on these countries, that answers your question there.
Yeah. No, that's interesting because it would have been interesting to see if like it's a global trend, because then it would be like, well, given the massive like variety of cultures and ways of seeing the world, it would be like stranger if the entire world was heading on that trajectory. But it sounds like it's more the what's it called, the Anglophone, like the English speaking world.
It's the Western world. We can I actually googled this earlier on to make sure I wasn't getting this wrong, but yes, the Western world is obviously some of these countries. Australia is not technically the West, but is considered to be in the Western world. Right, culturally. Exactly. Yeah, culturally West is where it seems to be the worst. These problems seem to be the worst. That's what I've noted anyway. So do you want to go on to maybe start to kind of speculate or I suppose share our opinions on where it comes from?
So originally, I don't know where it would have come. Well, it will probably have multiple sources that I'm not aware of. But one of the things that I have seen, it's very common on like places like Instagram. People often talk about like self-care and stuff like that. And obviously there are a variety of approaches to self-care on Instagram. Just in general, but the most places I've seen dialogue on self-care, and I will hold my hands up and say I don't go around looking for dialogue on self-care, but as someone who doesn't even look for it, I get loads of things come up on Instagram about self-care, and I'm not even looking for it. Like my search history and stuff like that is nothing to do with self-care, and it's still getting promoted to me. So the stuff I'm seeing, a lot of it tends to be it tends to have two main things that I've seen are not really the best approach to what self-care would be, right? But before I get on to that, I wanted to ask you, and I'll give my opinion as well, on like, so what do you think should even the goal be of self-care. Like, to me, this goal of self-care should be to be able to get you in a mental and physical condition where you are able to withstand the general like ups and downs of life, so that you're not overwhelmed constantly. You know, obviously everyone's going to have periods where they're overwhelmed here and there, you know, if a family member dies or something like that, obviously. But there seem to be from what I've seen of some areas of the whole self-care sort of sphere, it seems to be that there's this promotion of self-care as being something that pulls you away from even small discomforts, rather than these bigger ones that we're talking about, like the death of it in the family and stuff like that. But yeah, what do you think is what should even be the goal of self-care in anyway?
The goal of any self-help or self-development should be to have you be able to succeed in the world in a to be productive and to be the best version of yourself, so that you can just smash life. Now, and I can dig into what smash life means. It means you can live the life that is not that you want to live, because if you want to live a shit life, then, you know, but it's more, self-care should push you in a direction where you are doing the things that we know are objectively good to do, right? And that you can handle them and work that way. So for example, it should be focused on what good can you do for those who in a less fortunate position than you. We all know that helping those in need is an incredible actual form of self-care. We all know that, or at least we did until 5 minutes ago. And this kind of brings me on to my kind of loose theory as to what I think is going on. Because if you look at, in the West, Christianity is the dominant religion, right? But even if you look at Islam, both Christianity and Islam, what do they have focuses on? When it comes to the poor, what do they say? They say, roughly, the best thing you can do for your soul is to help those in need. Roughly, that's what Christianity and Islam say. Now, obviously, with Christianity, that is a lot more prevalent. Lots of Christians, they talk about the Christian way and stuff like that. But, if you look past all of the, frankly, idiots who've misrepresented what Islam is, that is kind of one of the core things of Islam too, is to help those in need and help the weak and the needy. It's a shame that it gets twisted and that there's so much, crap that goes with that. And the same as Christianity. But the point is, anyway, they both said that. So you find a lot of people from my upbringing, and people, that people seems to be more focused on helping others makes you feel better, right? And community, helping your mate, your brother, your sister, just your next door neighbor. This was a lot more of how people, I suppose, would practice self-care back in the day. Now, you mentioned it earlier, the rise of what self-care is now. It's not that at all. It doesn't focus on helping your neighbor and thinking about those worse off than you. All it does is say, you are important. You need to look after yourself. You're the most important person in your life. And we get all these self-care influencers. And I'm going to sound like a hardcore conservative or something right now, but I'm going to have to say it. These new age religions are replacing traditional old school religions. And they are all focused on narcissistic self-obsession, right? We talked about meditation and how valuable it is, right? And it is valuable, of course. But the way these people put it, it's meditation, self-obsessed meditation. It's all about you. Figure out how you feel. Figure out this, figure out that. It's you. That's all these new age religions. They're all trying to get you obsessed with yourself. Whereas traditional religions, for all the bad they do, their core message was not always that. Their core message was mostly about help the poor, right? Help those worse off than you. So I think there's a lot to kind of take out of that. But yeah, I do think the rise of these self-care new age influencers has contributed to this massively. Teaching people that they are the most important thing in the world, and they should put themselves first. Yeah, not to help others, not in order to continue to do but good things, but just so they can go out and make their career brilliant and make their business huge and stuff like that. It's like, what happened to make sure you're okay so you can go and help save the world? I don't know. I swear when I was younger, this was more the vibe. It was more, You know, how can I be the best so I can be the best for the people who need me? That was more the vibe.
So now we've gotten on to like how self-care has been corrupted. Like I've got two sort of things I've seen that one of them like heavily links to what you've just been saying. So the first thing to say is like self-care in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's like many things. It can have a good core message in terms of what we were just saying is being able to, as we would see it, a sort of a mature understanding of self-care would be to build resilience, right? Rather than hide away from discomfort. But self-care, it needs to be, I think, understood and presented in like a non-superficial way, because a lot of what I have seen is sort of, I don't know, I guess you could call it like Instagrammable self-care or something like that.
Well, people love any kind of Instagram meme that tells them that they're important and they should look after themselves. If you put out a post right now, Lawrence, that said, "Hey, you know, you're worth it. Treat yourself. Go and get yourself that chocolate and get in bed and watch Netflix." It's self-care. Who's not going to like that message?
Yeah.
Only a fraction of people are going to say, "That's some pussy ass shit right there." No, go to the gym, pick up some fucking weights, and then go out, do something with your life. Not many people are going to say that because that's really hard. That's really tough.
It's because eating like sweet, high-calorie food and sitting in bed is what we all want to do, right? So it's kind of telling everyone to do what they want to do anyway,
and it's successful for that reason.
Yeah, but putting some sort of like grand label on it or whatever. But speaking in general, obviously there are going to be exceptions, blah 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 blah. But in general, there are two things that I sort of felt when I've seen self-care stuff, and in some of the videos I watched just to get more of a feel of things before we did this. I sort of saw these two things being highlighted in some of the comments that people were making. So the first one, and so these two things are two things I think that this form of self-care we're talking about is essentially corrupted, so that it actually is either not useful to many people or it actively makes things worse for people.
Right.
But it's been given the label of self-care. Now, I'm not saying like everyone has been hoodwinked and everyone thinks this is self-care and it's all in a
stop with the disclaimers and get to the 2 points. Right. Come on, man. This is not the channel. This is not the channel to preemptively apologize. People know who we are and they know how we talk. All right, just go for it.
The 2 points. So the first point is that a lot of the self-care I have seen, even down to the fonts they use, the images they use, and the color schemes they use, is much more geared towards people who are more feminine. And that can be men and women, because there are a lot of masculine women who wouldn't align with this form of self-care. And also people who tend to be more sensitive and driven by feeling rather than, when I say feeling, I mean more driven by emotion, which I'm not necessarily saying is a negative thing. I'm just saying, some people are more driven by emotion and some people are more sort of
no, it's the fact that some people are more emotional is not negative, but the fact that these people target those people is negative. Because they take advantage of their emotional default. Yeah,
exactly. So like this form of, like I said, it goes down to things like fonts and color schemes and stuff like that. And it's very much geared towards being in touch with your emotions and sharing your feelings, etc., which appeals to some people, but a lot of people it doesn't appeal to. So I think that is one way that this form of self-care is not the best, because I think there are many sort of rules of thumb or teachings that are valuable for valid, like genuine self-care that can apply to basically everyone. But this is, I think, an unnecessarily narrowed form of self-care, and it's often presented as the form of self-care. From what I've seen in some posts. The other thing is that it's this form of self-care seems to be centered more around the self than it is the care.
That's a great observation.
So, yeah, basically, the reason I say that is because it seems to be centered around or based on like the short-term wants of the person rather than like the long-term needs of the person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason that leads more into the self is because you're thinking about what do I want here and now that will make me feel better,
Mm-hmm.
rather than the care side of it, which is what will I need in the long term to help me secure a sort of a decent, satisfactory future,
Right.
rather than, which may include some, short-term sacrifices and stuff like that.
Right.
So an example of this is avoiding like an uncomfortable situation that can be like avoiding uncomfortable situations can be classed by some people as self-care.
Yeah.
So it's like
It is.
protecting yourself emotionally, but this can sacrifice your long-term need, right, for psychological well-being.
Right.
So you don't, because of this because you're satisfying your short-term want to be comfortable, you're sacrificing your long-term ability to grow confidence in being able to overcome uncomfortable situations, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So this, there are obvious ways that this will become destructive.
Yeah, it already has. It already has become destructive, right? We have, many ways. And perfect. I think a really clear-cut example of what we're talking about would be the other day I watched a video and there was this protest happening. I think it might have been some kind of gender-related protest about a topic related to that. Or it could have been something to do with Palestine. I can't remember. But anyway, a reporter went over and off camera and said, this is according to them anyway. But I've seen videos of this happening, so I do trust that it's happened. Went over and said off camera, okay, look, can you tell me what are you trying to do? What's the goal? And they said no, because they know who this person is and they already assume that this. And when you go online on Twitter and in some other places, people say that it is self-care. It is self-care to not take the burden of having to explain this to somebody who is potentially disagreeing with you. Now, that's very interesting. If protesters have decided that it's self-care to not engage with the people they're trying to convince, how is it a protest anymore? Right? And so that's a really interesting and I find hilarious example of how self-care destroys the ability to actually do what would be good for you to do. Imagine if you, Lawrence, went out and you were trying to promote antinatalism, right, on the street, and someone came over who you've seen them around and they're critical of you, and you just said, no, I'm not going to explain to you what this is. You should do your own research. I'm going to look after myself here and my mental health. Be like, wait a minute. As long as they're not screaming at you or taking the piss or mocking you or trolling you, right? Which those, if they ask a simple question and you won't do it just for the preservation of your own self-care, preservation of your mental health, then what are you doing then? That's not a protest anymore, is it? So that would be the most funniest example of what you just said in real life and how ridiculous it's gotten at this point, right?
Yeah, but there are literally loads of examples that, like, even because a lot of people don't go on protests, so there are loads of things that even like your average Joe like will be in the situation of. So like at work, right? So if you have like an issue at work or you're hoping to maybe
just quit your job. That's what self-care says. But it does though, dude. It says self-care, like generic self-care nonsense says, if you have a hard job, you should quit your job and find something that better aligns with you. That's the kind of messaging that I've seen from these people who promote this stuff. My version of self-care would be, if you have a hard job, weigh up whether it's worth trying to find something else and all the hassle that comes with that, and then decide if the hassle and the going without a job is more of a problem than the job itself, stay with the job and fight through it and just learn to be more resilient. But obviously, if you look at all the hassle and you say, you know what, the hassle of quitting is worth it because I can handle that, right? It's all about resilience. It's not about giving in. It's you have to look at things logically and look at the two, and what the effort here and the effort here. Where is best to put my time and effort? That's what I think self-care is, not just give in because it's too hard.
Yeah, I also one other thing, just based around how, this brand of self-care puts more emphasis on the self, is that this sort of sacrificing of, or this focus on short-term needs of the self doesn't seem to recognize the fact that you're not the only person who's impacted by your self-care routine, or however you want to put it. So like, we all have relationships, right? Like romantic ones or friendships, stuff like that. Like, your mental state and your like general capacity for being able to navigate things like conflict and stuff like that is directly going to impact the people who you have relationships with. And the emphasis on doing things that makes you feel comfortable, putting yourself first, stuff like this. Now, there are many situations where putting yourself first will be reasonable, but there are also many situations where you can put too much focus on yourself. And one of those situations is in your relationship with others. So there are, again, many situations in your relationships with others where it's not good to put the other person first, because you can become a bit of a doormat. But you can't totally disregard them in the name of self-care. You can't just cut your friend off and say, well, I need to focus on myself right now, and just expect them to be left hanging for ages and ages and ages. Obviously like one evening, like whatever, but like cutting someone off like that is not respecting their side of the relationship. Especially if it's over something that is a low-level discomfort, and it's a low-level discomfort that involves them. Like, if you have an issue with them and your form of self-care commands you to just cut off the relationship rather than deal with the issue you have with them so that you can have a more long-term healthy relationship with them, then it's not going to lead you into the best place socially. It's going to lead you to become even more isolated.
Right.
And obviously that's going to be bad for you, but it should also be recognized that your self-care practice doesn't just impact you. It's not just about putting things in place to protect yourself. That's one thing, but that's also going to have implications for other people, obviously, as well.
And again, and this is what you just said is really, really relevant for the animal rights world. And also, by the way, if people listening here, I know people on this channel aren't all vegan, but if you don't identify with what we're saying here, just put it into context of the thing. So, for example, if you go out and you're working with human rights projects and things like that, just think about it there as well. There are people now, both in animal rights and human rights projects, or in any whatever project, and they put their self-care before the needs of the project and the needs of the people they're working with, to the point where they bail out and cancel out. They have a disagreement with somebody, or something goes wrong with somebody, like you just said, a relationship starts to not be so good. And instead of fixing it, they'll just say, oh, for my self-care, I need to just walk away from this for 6 months to a year or forever. Now, I've seen that a lot in my world, in the animal rights world. And I used to take it seriously. I used to say, wow, that person must have really needed to walk away. That person must have really needed that break. That must have put... But now I've seen it so often, I'm starting to think, do you know what? A break doesn't mean you need to literally sever yourself from all of it. A break can mean I'm going to take a step away from going out and doing this specific form of thing, and I'm going to do something that's less intensive, and I'm going to do something else at the same time. So, for example, I'm going to start doing more if you're a YouTuber, I'm going to start doing some more content that makes me happy, as well as still focusing on... So, for example, if you went from an animal rights content maker, maybe you could do a plant-based recipe channel for a bit, because that's just fun, right? And it's still... So that's a way you can still keep doing the thing that you enjoy and the thing that you're passionate about, except in a way that doesn't actually impact you with anywhere near as much as the previous way. So there are ways to do it. But, there is many individuals, like I said, that like you said, they fall into this disagreeing with some people in their world or whatever, and just overwhelmed. So, oh no, I need to cut off all those people. I need to cut off this entire project and my entire all my work. and focus on me. And as I said, I used to take that seriously, and I'm starting to take it less and less seriously, and I'm starting to actually not judge, but quietly think about it a bit and think, you know what? I don't know if I completely buy this. I think you need to toughen up. You know, I think people need to toughen up across the board. Actually, we've got a bit too soft, as it shows in the thumbnail. Why are people such pussies, right?
Yeah, and
these days.
Yeah, and I think like when people hear the word or the phrase like toughen up, they might
don't let me just pause you. Don't you dare try to start making excuses for my manliness. Don't you start undermining me here. Some people might listen to David and think when he says toughen up, that this is a toxic masculinity. But you see, guys, that's not what he means. I see where you're going with this.
It is 100%
toxic masculinity. That's exactly what it is, guys. Okay.
No, but that's not what I was going to say. What I was going to say is when people hear the phrase toughen up, they might interpret it in meaning one specific like form of toughening up, but there are many forms of toughening up, right? Like there are many ways someone can be tougher. Like one is building confidence, one is building competence, one is just learning more information, like all of these sorts of things. Like that's what I meant. Is like,
I know. I just thought it was but it's not. It's I would define it in a vague sense as just doing what needs to be done, despite the fact that it might be difficult for you. That's what I mean when I say toughen up. So that can mean anyone of any gender, of any particular way of life, can have a moment where they need to be told to toughen up, whether it be physically or mentally. Toughen up and get the thing that you need to do done. And if you can't get it done, and you literally have reached a brick wall, pivot and do something else. Don't just stop or abandon everything you've been working on. Abandon all of the in our world, the animals that are desperately needing your help, or in other worlds, the project and teams that are depending on you, because you've reached this moment where no, pivot and see what else you can actually do. Find what you can do and do that. Right. That's what I'm talking about when I say toughen up.
So what do you think about social media's role in this? Because I got two things to say on this.
Well, I think I wrote down to talk about TikTok. I think TikTok has been a massive influence in all of this. You got young people on TikTok who literally have been around for 5 minutes. Oh, I'm sounding like one of those grumpy old bastards now. They don't know anything, these little fuckers. Been around for 2 minutes. What are you, 12? But no, they are. They're like... They've got that youthful confidence that I had as well, and I was a gobshite and was really bad when I was young. I thought I knew everything about everything. We all do at the age of 15. But the difference when I was 15 was that if I thought I knew everything, I could just talk to the people around me and that's it. And then they could call my bullshit, or adults would always call my bullshit, and that would be the way of it. That's it. But nowadays, they can go and talk to a million people and spread their bullshit and their nonsense. And so I think TikTok has absolutely ruined youth in that way, because you've got people on there talking about self-care and stuff like that. And they don't know what they're talking about. And then, the blind follow the blind. And it just keeps on going on and on and on. And they follow each other's advice, and it's just terrible advice. So, I think social media has massively influenced the youth to be more self-obsessed. And even people of my age and your age, slightly older, to be slightly older, by the way. Still the youth. You're still the youth. I'm just clinging on to the youth. Right? Would I be described as the youth at the age of almost 35? Would I be in that bracket of the young people, or am I now into what I'm like between young and middle age, right?
Well, you're a young adult.
Young adult.
Well, I don't think young adult counts as youth.
Well, you're in the youth, aren't you? Right? You still count as that.
I think I would be a young adult.
What? How old are you again? 26.
26. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not young adult, man. I think you're just you're just about not a teenager.
Well, I've got pubes, so
you're only just not a teenager. I don't see how you could be called a young adult.
I'm 6 years not a teenager.
Yeah, you sound like one of these kids now. Hey, listen, I'm 26 and three
and
quarters,
a
okay?
Oh shit.
But yeah, it's also people of my age, my generation, your generation, who've been influenced by the social media morons. But I think the absolute youth, they have nothing to compare it against, so they're completely lost. At least you and I, we know what stuff was like before that, and you know, we kind of have something to compare to, but they don't. They just
yeah.
So I think what were your two things on the social media?
Well, so the first one was the portrayal of self-care on social media. I think so. With social media, it seems to be a lot easier to put out one aspect of your life, right?
Right.
But when I say put it out, I don't mean 30 years ago you put one aspect of your life out on a dating column in the newspaper, because that's how many people are going to see that, and as soon as they meet you in real life, that facade is gone.
Yeah.
But if you're a social media influencer, you can create a very good facade with a very big audience, and a very small amount of that audience are ever going to meet you in real life and really see behind the curtain.
Right.
But and on social media, this form of self-care where it's focused on a protection from immediate discomfort, or in like indulgences as a form of self-care, like, you know, eating the chocolates and stuff and having ice cream and stuff like that.
Netflix and chill, but alone.
Yeah,
and instead of a
Netflix
significant
and chill.
other, it's a pot of ice cream.
Exactly. Yeah. You're spooning, but it's just holding the spoon and eating the ice cream. So, this sort of immature form of self-care gets put out there, and it's a lot easier to put that out on social media than it is on other places, and that skews the form of self-care that people have like access to, especially young people. And when I say have access to, I mean just like exposed to is more a better thing, like that, you know.
Right.
But it's like the form of self-care that I actually think will significantly, or the forms of self-care that would actually significantly help people in their life trajectory, don't seem to get promoted in the same ways, because they're not as sexy, right?
Well, they're not as accepted. It's the same reason that people like Sadhguru, an internationally renowned guru, and other gurus like him, they give people basic stuff that they like to do. They don't ever tell people difficult things that they don't want to do, because that's how they stay on top. That's how they get popular. They take something basic and try to make it sound mystical, rather than taking something difficult and telling people this is how your life will improve. You're going to do some tough shit. They don't want to do tough shit.
Yeah. And like one example I was going to give was, and I think I know I gave this example in the last podcast, so maybe people are going to think I'm harking on a bit, but
oh, here he goes again.
But opening an ISA, like that.
Okay, will you just get over the ISA thing, man? God, we did this last time. You have to explain what an ISA is again. Oh my God.
An ISA is just basically like a tax wrapper you put around your savings and investments. But basically, and that's the UK definition.
It's just it's a financial thing that people should know how to do. That's it.
I think that is a valid form of self-care, opening and using an ISA, because it is going to help you in your financial security long term, and that's going to help you in. Fuck's sake. It's like I'm trying to sell something.
Do you work for a bank or something at this point? You're just trying to. Do you want to plug something? Are you with like NatWest or something? What's going on?
Anyway, so the other thing about social media that I was going to talk about, is so social media. I think it's kind of tacit, obviously, at this point, that social media makes us more self-centered, and it's easier to dehumanize other people, right? So a good example of this is if you see some reel on TikTok, what's it called on TikTok? A video on TikTok or a reel on Instagram or whatever.
You sound so old just now. If you see a reel on Tikstagram, or what's that thing the kids call it? Tick book. What is it? Is it face grab?
So if you see a video of someone like dancing, for example, on one of those things,
Yeah.
then you open, and let's say it's like not a very good dance. You open a comment section, people are going to make that known, right?
Yeah,
They're going to tell that person that they're a shit dancer, not worth making videos, don't quit your day job. When have you ever been at an in-person party at someone's house? Someone's drunk, they're dancing badly. No one just heckles them and says, "You're a shit dancer, mate." Do that unless it's your friend and you're taking a
Yeah,
piss
of
and you're making a
course.
joke.
No strangers would do that.
You
though,
never
no.
go up to a stranger and just tell them how shit their dancing is.
No.
Even though they've gone out, they're doing it in public, just like on social media.
Yeah.
And it's just like on social media, people like feel like they like them uploading that video of them dancing is there to please the viewer. You know, it's all
Right.
about me, and
Yeah.
so I should be giving my opinion about their dancing. It's like, it's not about you. Like, it's just by chance that, well, not by chance, but the algorithm just threw this up to you. It wasn't like that person sent you the video in DMs or whatever. Do you get what I mean?
Right.
But people, one, they feel like they're so important that their opinion matters, and on that specific thing, and two, the other person has become dehumanized enough where they feel it's okay to say something like that.
Well, this is the narcissism.
Yeah, and another example is the one that Ricky Gervais gives in his stand-up, where it's like, I don't want fucking guitar lessons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this is literally the narcissism. The people on social media, like you just said, they feel like this is for them, and then they should be, they are allowed, or even that they should make a comment on it, because I'm on social media, this is my world, and you came into it, so now I'm going to abuse you, because I'm the only one that matters here. And the social media has created that narcissism. Oh, I don't think it created it, but it definitely helped it along. And then that transfers into with the self-care. They already think that they're the most important thing in the world, thanks to this whatever social media has created. And then the self-care stuff, the famous self-care influencer nonsense, plays on that. And it's easy to sell because they're already obsessed with themselves thanks to this new system. So the self-care is what Annie put in the chat earlier. It's actually selfish care. It's not self-care at all. It's just basically, it's feeding into the algorithm, the actual life algorithm. Right. So you've got the social media algorithm, which has created or at least encouraged people to be more narcissistic in real life. So now their real life algorithm is kind of skewed towards I'm really important. So then they open Instagram again, and then self-care content comes up, which feeds more into that narcissism, which makes them more in the real life, the real world setting, more of a narcissist. It's everything online is feeding into your narcissism. It's a nightmare. It's a constant. I'm glad you pointed out that in general, social media encourages narcissism, because then the self-care element of that on social media ramps
like
it
steroids.
up. Like steroids, yeah, like a catalyst, just kicks it all off to the next level. And
it's a bit like you know how there's that general, and obviously it's not always true, but there's that general saying of like never meet your heroes. Generally, it's referring to like celebrities.
right.
And it's because like fame, it can really get to you if everyone is constantly you know, if you're constantly feeling like people want to know about you and you're important, then obviously you're going to become more self-indulgent. Wait, is self-indulgent the right term? Self-obsessed, this sort of stuff. And so yeah, and so, you know, obviously one of the sayings that comes out of that is like never meet your heroes, because they probably won't be as nice a person as the person they're putting across, and they've probably somewhat been corrupted by the fame. Now obviously you're going to have celebrities who can handle it, but a lot of people can't. And that's also true with social media. Like everyone's become their own mini celebrity or influencer if they want to.
On that a bit,
they can put out stuff about their life and act as if everyone cares. And you know, obviously some people will care. You know, it's nice to see your, you know, friends' holiday stuff and you know, shit like that. But it can get to a degree for some people where they have this, it helps them lean into their inflated sense of their inflated ego and feeling of self-importance. And Yeah, that was basically what I had to say on that.
I want to get on to now a little bit of what I think as to why. So this only seems to be, from what I can see in the Western world. I don't with the sick days thing, and if you all we ever seem to hear out of a lot of other major countries and countries with a lot of money at least, and similar systems to the Western world, is that this doesn't seem to be an issue, as much of an issue in those places. Like places like we said, like Japan, for example, was one example of it. And China, there's a lot of propaganda coming out of China, but it doesn't seem to be that they're having this issue there, at least not from what you can read and see. But in the West, why does it seem to be ramping up so much and to this level? And I think, I take it back about China, by the way. Maybe it does happen there, but the point is, why is it happening here anyway? Let's just focus on that. Why is it happening here? And I think that it's possibly the fault of progressivism, because we have a society that is extremely caring and extremely tolerant to different ideas and different people, different cultures, and for the most part, that's a good thing. Obviously, there are examples where it's really not a good thing. You shouldn't be tolerant of intolerance, right? And you definitely shouldn't be so tolerant that you allow your own life and culture to be negatively impacted. You should maintain you should preserve the positive things about your culture and about your traditions, and don't let them get tainted and taken over and by ones that are not as good, right? But overall, I think we have a good system where we have mostly eradicated a lot of the horrible things that other countries still have across the West. For example, things like all the isms and the phobes and all that kind of stuff. It's a minority, isn't it? Right? It's not outwardly okay anymore. If someone's outwardly an ist or a phobe, most people go, hey, you're a piece of shit. Stop doing that. The people aren't comfortable with it anymore. So we've got a pretty good situation, but is it possible that we've gone too far and it's become an overcorrection now, that people look at the past and they say, oh, we need to make things a lot better than then. And then that's led to, I don't know, a society that is so tolerant and so caring and so understanding, or trying to be, that we don't call out that someone's just being a massive pussy. That we take them at their word and 100% seriously. And we believe them, and we try to make society better for them. We introduce hate crimes so that people can't be mean to them anymore without breaking the law and things like this. And I mean, that's what I think. I think it's just a massive overcorrection. I really do. I think hurt feelings have become as bad in a lot of the West as actually being hurt physically. I think that's a widely accepted notion in a lot of spaces now.
Yeah. Well, I've heard some people who are critical of liberalism, blame it on liberalism. But when I say liberalism, I mean it in like the English sense. So I'm not actually talking about progressivism. I'm talking about sort of classical liberalism that puts emphasis on individual rights and stuff like that. Because liberalism, the core of liberalism is that I don't want to get into all. I don't want to get into all of the nuances of liberalism.
You don't
but
need
basically,
to. Just,
the critique is that liberalism puts emphasis on the importance of the individual, right? So to put this in context, conservatism tends to put more emphasis on conserving traditions and currently held values, right?
Yeah.
Progressivism tends to put emphasis on empowering the disenfranchised. Liberalism tends to put emphasis on individuals and individual rights, right? And the way that liberalism conflicts with conservatism and progressivism is that liberalism will protect individuals over the culture or the traditions that have been around for ages, right? So there, like there may be a tradition like FGM. Obviously, liberalism would be like, nope, that's violating individual rights, so we'll get rid of that bit of the culture. likewise, liberalism will also push back against progressivism, because progressivism may actually sort of put more emphasis on the, if it goes to excess, it may put more emphasis on the needs and interests of historically disenfranchised people at the expense of people who haven't been historically disenfranchised, right? Which would mean there's unequal treatment. So that would be an example of like a quota system, right? Whereas liberals would reject that, because it's like you're treating people differently and we treat people based on individuals, right? So some people critique liberalism by saying it's put into the culture that individuals are so important that they are like, what the individual says goes. It's all about the individual opinion. And so if the individual finds something uncomfortable and wants to shy away from it as a form of self-care, that is totally valid. That is totally fine, because their individual choice is supreme, as long as they're not, hurting someone else or something like that. So I've seen some people blame it on liberalism, even though I think liberalism is the best, or practically speaking, it's probably the best way forward. But there is that critique that some people say about how it's led to a culture of too much self-indulgence, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So another example would be like, that person's eating loads of ice cream and they're getting fat, but you can't tell them not to do that because that's their individual choice. If you tell them not to do that, you're being controlling.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's well, that is literally happening.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So that is happening in certain sects. Now, if it's a result of liberalism,
that's happening. No, that's not just happening in certain areas. That's literally happening on a global scale, at least not global scale. Sorry, at a Western world, international scale. You're seeing the massive big fashion brands were getting on board with it. They're not anymore, but they were getting on board with it, and they were booking extreme obese models for the photo shoots in order to try to normalize morbid obesity for body positivity purposes. So it's, and this is one of the results of this kind of madness of people not having the guts anymore to stand up and tell people to, because they don't want to offend anybody. Right. So it would be, flip that on its head, for example, and imagine they were posting up images of people who were severely thin, almost dead.
Yeah.
It wouldn't happen, right? But for some reason,
that got banned, didn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. So I don't know. Anyway, the point is, that example you gave is happening. People are too scared to actually say what needs to be said for fear of offense, for fear of hurting feelings. So if you say that's liberalism, well, then that's where it's led us then, isn't it? If that's what that comes under.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that. I can see where they're coming from. I don't know if that it is actually where it's come from, but yeah, I can see like what their criticism is. I think it's somewhat valid. Yeah,
Which criticism? Sorry.
The one where if you put too much emphasis on the individual, that's good when the individual isn't being appreciated at all.
Right.
But it can go too far, like you were saying. And I think
this is
what we're talking about here, about self-care specifically, is probably an example of liberalism going too far. Because it's not an example of conservatism going too far, obviously. Like, none of these self-care influences are open conservatives. Like, true, most of them tend to probably be on the progressive end of the spectrum, but the underlying values that are informing it are probably more liberal than progressive.
Right. Okay. I understand. Yeah. So I think that's a large part of it, and I think playing into this, it's probably, if you take a look at generally across the mainstream media, they're generally leaning more towards that than the other side. Right, if a mainstream publication put a thing out tomorrow and said, "Fat isn't healthy. You need to lose weight," it would be controversial. That's the world we're in. So most mainstream publications will not say that, and only the ones that will be hardcore kind of right-wing publications. They're the only ones that'll say it, and they're in a minority, and they'll get dragged through the bloody, what do you say? They'll get absolutely smashed for it. Dragged over the coals, that's it, for it. So this is where we are in the West, where you can't call a spade without that. And so, yeah, trying to, I guess, I think it mostly, you would say it's come from progressive people with a liberal mindset. That's what you were trying to get at, right? That you think that's where a lot of it originates from. Well, it's definitely not originating from conservatives.
Exactly. It's not an original thought from me, but it seems to have some weight from what I can see. Yeah.
Right. And it is incredible. When I come to think, when I said that out loud just now, that it would be controversial to say that, it really does blow my mind that it would be controversial to say that morbidly obese people should probably lose weight. That's controversial. Someone could clip this out now. I believe that, by the way. I'm not just quoting somebody else. Like, call me out. I don't care. I can't believe that I have to actually, that could be controversial. If I said that maybe on the main channel, which I would say if it came up and it was relevant, a lot of people would be very upset about that. Isn't that crazy? That's where we're at right now, And this is part of earlier on we said
rearing its head again.
Say again.
I said it's fascism rearing its head again.
Well, there is a lot of control. I mean, there is a lot of. Well, there's a lot of things I want to say right now. I'm gonna have to put them in an order that makes sense. So basically, it is kind of we do have a situation right now where your thoughts are being policed, and that's not just this is like, he thinks he's in a sci-fi movie. It is the reality, because if I share my thoughts on social media, I'm in the UK right now. If I share my thoughts on social media on certain topics, the police will knock on my door and tell me to stop doing that. So this is the thought police right now. Not just violent thoughts, not inciting violence, by the way, because that, I think there is some grounds to be like, hey, you shouldn't incite violence. But if I just say, I don't know, if I say put something online that is seen as offensive to some protected groups in the UK, regardless of whether or not it's inciting violence, I will get a visit from the police. Is that not thought police? Is that not where we're at right now?
Well, I mean, thought police doesn't even have to be the actual police. It can be self-censorship as well, right? From just the general climate of society. One example is I'm gonna butcher the specific question he put out, but do you remember? It was probably a couple of years ago now, or maybe like a year and a half ago. Richard Dawkins. This was before. I mean, Richard Dawkins has become more involved in this conversation now, but I think it was before he'd really weighed in that much. He put out a tweet, and it was something like, if someone can change sex, then we should accept that someone can change race as well, or something like that. I haven't got it word for word, but something like that. Yeah. And at the end of it, he put discuss. So he wasn't making a statement that he thinks is true or anything like that.
Yeah, he was just. That's a tactic we used to use in Facebook days too.
Oh, really?
You want to say something, but you don't want the heat, so you just put discuss at the end.
Maybe he was doing that. Maybe I've been hoodwinked, but this seems like something that a lot of, remember, he moves in intellectual academic circles, probably talks to a lot of philosophers. So to openly discuss controversial things like that, like, I am not inside his mind, but it didn't suggest to me that he was willfully trying to inflame anything.
Right.
It's a bit like, well, we don't. I was going to give another example.
But they came after him anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. He got loads of shit for it, just saying, let's discuss this thing, and without necessarily endorsing either side.
Right. Yeah, because people get upset and they say you shouldn't be allowed to say that. And this happened. This has happened with me on this channel here. And I actually said that exact point during I had Catherine Klein on debating the trans influencer Book Angel, and I asked the question. I asked her this exact question. I didn't get it from Richard Dawkins. I actually just asked it because she was making a point, and I said the race thing. I said, yeah, if someone just decides they're a different race now without doing anything to actually make that the case, because I think she was making the argument that, yes, somebody can just click their fingers and now they are man, woman, doesn't matter because it's a social construct. I said, well, so is race. So can somebody do the same thing for race? Because race is literally a social construct. We've just decided that if you have a darker skin and other features on your face that are a bit different to a white person's, or whatever, if you're a black person, then a white person's features different to yours, then they're a different race. No, that's just something we've just decided. You're not actually different. We're all human. You're not a different race whatsoever. You just have different features based on where you were born. And, evolutionary, for example, like a lot of Africans have the flat, wide nose. And that's to get more air in because they lived in, I believe, it was really, really hot. It was more difficult to breathe. So we find it harder with our shitty little noses, right? Because we lived in more cold places, stuff like that, right? But that's not a different race. So it's a social construct. And she couldn't answer it. But again, I got, I've been, continuously attempts to cancel me and have people, turn off me for having that whole conversation and stuff. So you're right, there is, and then you are encouraged, as you said anyway, back to your point, to self-censor. After that whole debacle that I had for having a conversation online, I had a conversation online with an interesting person, and that led to me feeling like I might have to self-censor myself because of that, and for the sake of not offending people, which is, in the past it wouldn't have mattered, but in today's world, if you offend someone, they go out of your way to try and absolutely, bring your world down. But we're going off on a tangent here. I feel like this is ground we might have already covered, and it kind of ended up here because it is linked. But let's cover ground we haven't covered yet. Here's a fun conspiracy, and then what we'll do is,
fuck me,
after my big conspiracy, we'll talk about, is there anything good that's come of this whole situation? Because this is all bad. We're negative Nancy's right now.
Yeah.
And then we'll finish with just some positive little speeches to get people pumped to go and do some real self-care. But firstly, all right, my conspiracy. All right, here we go. Are you ready for this, guys? YouTube might be listening right now, and they might just say, oh God, this is it. He's done. He's finally said it. He's found out. The 15 people listening right now, you guys are going to know. Lawrence and I are going to know. But the YouTube's going to say, no, this goes no further. So here's my conspiracy theory. So there are some players involved in the society right now trying to play some cards, trying to do some tactics. One of them is the WEF, World Economic Forum. What do they want? They want an entirely different world system. They want to uproot everything and replace it all with what they think is best. This is a group of leaders from all over the world who think they know best. They want a global government to control everything, right? I'm not making any of this up. You can go on their website, take a look at what they're about. Okay, that's them. They exist. Now it gets a little bit more conspiratorial because I don't believe there's any hard evidence or website to just go find this. But there is a gentleman goes
one.
By, yes, and a team, I suppose.
All right, go on.
Goes by the name of George Soros. And the conspiracy people out there, well, it's not just conspiracy. He has on record given mass amounts of money to specific movements and specific groups who have in turn contributed to the destruction of the regular functionings of Western countries, right? So, for example, I believe he massively funded BLM and helped with all of those riots and all of that madness. He's also funded a lot of other left-wing groups that cause a lot of havoc. Now, here's the conspiracy, right? With this happening, one group, one organization trying to get us all to change and try to rule the world, and another funding organizations that literally try to tell people that what they think is real isn't real, and that they're all victims, and that we need to riot and we need to smash everything. We need to get rid of the police. It feels to me like these two things are working together. One, destroy, the other one, take over. Okay. Why is this relevant to what we have going on here? Well, if everyone is so distracted with how they feel and themselves and literally just giving themselves a break whenever they have a hard time, resilience is through the floor, They have no motivation, no get up and go. Everything is just, oh, I can take a break whenever I want. Make everything convenient for me. Don't have me work hard one day in my life. That turns every potentially strong member of society into a weakling, into a wimp. And then what does that do? That makes it easier for those that want to obtain power to then obtain that power, because everybody who could have been a leader, could have been a resistance, they've been dealt with. Because in their youth, they were told they're the most important person in the world, and all they need to do is have the easiest life possible, and they'll be happy. So the next generations, very, very few of them are going to be real, hardworking, grafting, resilient people who can handle tough shit. Most of them are going to be soft, malleable, very easy to manipulate, and obsessed with selfies and whatever makes them happy. So I think it feeds into all of that. This is a complete and utter conspiracy. I don't necessarily subscribe 100% to what I'm saying here. It is more of a playful kind of, could this be happening? But I mean, it could, right? I'm just asking questions.
Discuss.
I'm saying that last bit because it's from the movie Don't Look Up. You know, where they took the piss out of the conspiracy theorists, and they're like, "I'm just asking questions. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just asking questions over here." You know.
So, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to give my opinion on that?
Well, okay. I'll tell you what. Give me a percentage of if 100% is that this is the case, and 0% is that this is absolutely not the case. Where do you sit?
Well, I have very limited information about this because I have not looked into it at all. But I would say...
Wait, hold up before you give it. Based on the fact that the Soros thing is true, he does fund these movements, and the WEF thing... Well, the WEF thing is true. They are trying to replace governments, right?
No.
Based on that...
even if you accept those two things to be true... I mean, George Soros could just be like really bad at picking his to use a non-vegan, but really bad at picking his horses, if you get what I mean.
This is not an individual who makes random choices. Is
it a foundation, or I don't know anything about this guy.
He's an individual with a lot of money. And
is it like Bill Gates, and they have the Bill Gates and Melinda Foundation?
Basically, yeah. It's from what I understand, it's kind of one of those situations.
Okay.
Like there's families and there's people they put money in places where they want to influence. Like Bill Gates does that. Okay. Rockefellers do that, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, invest in certain things that they think are going to pay off and stuff. You know, that kind of thing.
I would probably say 2-3%.
Sorry.
I'd probably say like 2-3%.
2 to 3%.
Yeah.
Based on so if what I said was true, you think 2 to 3%. You don't 2 to
3% chance that is actually happening. Yeah.
So you don't think you think there's a 97% chance that the individuals who want to take over and tell us all how to live and take all the things you own from you, by the way, it's all about that with the WEF.
Are actually the cause of the things that
No, not the cause. No. Right. Okay, no, not the cause. But that, for example, social media can be bought and can be influenced to serve you things that are not good for you. I'm saying that if you were in the position where you had a fuckload of money and you wanted some things to happen, would you not put the money in the places where you could make the certain content come for people to make them softer and easier to manipulate?
Well, I wouldn't put it in that place, but I would put it in places, yeah.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying maybe that they didn't cause it, but I'm saying they're definitely not holding it back, the people that want us all to be softer and easier to manipulate. And it's also part of in the last podcast we did, the us versus them mentality that has also been generated. Actually, we fight each other more than we fight anyone in power. It's all part of the same kind of, that's why social media serves up stuff that makes you angry with other people versus angry with the actual people you should be angry with. Things like that. It's all kind of...
Yeah, I mean, a few things I would say is like... What?
It's just so conspiratorial. And
No, I
I'm
know.
fully aware of it, by the way. I'm not one of these people who's balls deep in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
stuff and not realizing I sound mental right now. I know I sound mental right now, but that's what this podcast is for. It's for us to just get it all out,
Well, so the first thing I would say is a lot of the money that these people will invest will probably go through a foundation. And I would assume all these foundations have like boards and stuff like that. So I don't think it would literally just be if money comes from Bill Gates or George Soros. It's not coming directly from them.
Come off it. If you have enough money, no board can stop you from doing exactly what you want to do with that money. No one can stop you.
Well, it depends. I don't know how these things work, but presumably you have to commit a certain amount of money to a foundation. Obviously, you would have set up the foundation to generally serve causes that you agree with, but are you the one who's actually making the specific decisions about which exact groups it goes to?
100%. 100%.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I think if you look up the Bill and Gates Melinda Foundation and see like who's on the board. All of those they won't just be like literally. No, but I'm saying as an example because I don't know the one for George Soros. Like I don't know what's his foundation called. If you look up that,
this is George Soros foundations. Or Open Society Foundations, I guess. I'm googling it anyway. But like I said. Anyway, look, I said him because look, I know that he gave a fuckload of money to BLM when shit was going really, really bad. But it's more my more focus is on the WEF more than anything because it's more concrete what they're trying to do, versus what that stuff.
I think one thing about the WEF is even if they're trying to do that, like one, it doesn't necessarily mean they're being successful, and two, they won't be the only group trying to do that. So obviously, a lot of the Arabic countries that generally tend to share like an Islamic culture, they will have their own versions of that where they're trying to, spread a more Islamic interpretation of how society should be. China are going to be doing the same, like all the Belt and Road Initiative, everything they're doing in Africa, like the Chinese government are beginning to do the same. So there are like multiple sort of groups that are aiming at having major influence over the world. So the WEF will presumably be one of them.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, but it's not like they're going to be,
okay. How about
not all of them are going to have the same values. The WEF is going to be different to China, is going to be different to the Muslims. They're all going to have different conceptions on. Yeah.
Do you agree that how about this? Can we agree that it seems to be, from what we're observing, that there is a concerted effort to make people shit, right? Whether that be addicted to shit that makes them feel bad, like social media or Netflix, or whether it be the messages themselves that mostly come through these platforms being shit. We can agree that in the Western world, there seems to be a concerted effort to push that as opposed to push things that make us better. Do you agree?
Yeah, some individuals or bodies will be pursuing things that will have that consequence. Yeah, I don't know if it's like all of the powers that be.
No, I don't know.
But certain aspects. Yeah.
I feel like
pushing stuff like that.
It feels like it's that way. It feels like there's been a big pivot, a big turn from. I don't know. I'm speaking about when I was young. When I was young, I don't remember looking at things and thinking that's trying to make me into a shitter person. And I remember I see that a lot now, though. It seems that there's a lot of stuff out there that's like, hey, this is going to make you into a shitter person than you are. And it's just everywhere you look. The advertising is horrible right now. Look at the Christmas ads in the UK right now. Have you seen them? Some of these ads.
I saw there was one that was a was it M&S had a controversial one? It was
M&S, right? And
I haven't watched any of them.
Oh, mate. So on this ad, right, guys, you should check this out. I think it's M&S, the controversial Christmas ad. This is why did I not mention this earlier? This is so relevant. The ad itself, it's showing people preparing for Christmas, right? And then they're kind of like mished about it. Oh, they're kind of like, because sometimes prepping for Christmas it's rough. It can be stressful. Fine. And so then at some point in the ad, they all just give up preparing. So this guy offers, there's a gay couple, right? And the guy's like, hey, do you want to play this game with me? And the guy comes over and just throws the game. And then they're all like, ha, it's so funny because he doesn't want to play the game. It's like, okay, one woman decides, I'm not going to send my Christmas cards out. I'm going to burn them instead. I'm going to burn my Christmas cards. Another one throws I don't know, like either golf clubs a Santa off the roof or something like that. I can't remember what it is. And they're all just saying like, yeah. And then the message of the ad at the end of it, it goes, it's all about you. Christmas, make Christmas about you, basically. Don't worry about, and the message is, don't
Christmas
do nice
is literally supposed to be about other people.
Right. Well, the message is this year, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Don't worry. Just burn the Christmas cards. Don't play any games. Like, board games, not everyone's into board games, but we all do it for Christmas because it's like, whatever. If everyone else wants to do it, just do it, right? It's Christmas. No, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. Just throw the game. Throw it away. Don't worry about it. Don't let anyone else play it. I just tell them, no, I'm not doing that. It's my Christmas. That's the message of this. Isn't that just wow, what a perfect representation of how fucked things are?
Yeah, that is a shitty message. Yeah.
Unreal. So
that is a shitty message because it's like, how many kids want to hang out with their grandparents? Not many, right?
No.
Especially at Christmas. They want to be playing on their new game or whatever. But at Christmas, for many people, if they have grandparents, that's going to be one of the few times of the year where they'll be able to actually spend time with them. Right. And I mean, there are so many benefits. I mean, it's good when you're a kid to interact with people who, one, are from a different generation, so they just grew up in a different environment. But also it's good, to interact with people at different stages of the life cycle and shit.
Right. Exactly.
And
the people are not going to be around.
Yeah.
Say again.
Well, I was just going to say, and just family bonding. But this message is sort of promoting, I haven't seen the advert, but this message is promoting, like if your kid wants to play on the Xbox or whatever the kids play now, then let him do that. He doesn't have to hang out with Nana and Granddad or whatever.
It's basically, and it was aimed at adults though, not kids. This was aimed at adults. These were adults doing all this shit. They should know better. They should be setting a better example. And what you said about grandma, what I would like to see in an ad about grandparents about Christmas, the grandparents at Christmas, right? Is there should be an ad that brings home just how little time you have left with not only your grandparents but with your parents too. So most adults don't live with their grandparents and don't live with their parents. So
all right, rub it in.
That wasn't supposed to be a dig, but now I see why it was a great dig.
I just played off it.
That's hilarious. So okay, let's put it to grandparents, right? So your grandparents, let's imagine you're an adult and your grandparents are currently 70 years old. Both of them, grandma and granddad. I almost said grandma and granddad, right? 70 years old. So let's imagine they live to a ripe old 85, both of them 85. Let's just put it there, okay? Before something happens, right? God forbid. So they've got 15 years. You have 15 more Christmases with them. Just think about that. You only have 15 more with them if that's how old they are. Maximum 20 Christmases with them. Now do that for your parents too. You don't live at home, right? Now imagine your parents are 50. Again, you only have 35 or 40 Christmases left. That is it. You will get no more. And the last couple of Christmases that you'll have with them are going to be a bit shit because they're not going to be able to eat properly, probably not going to be able to stand up. It's going to be in some kind of nursing home full of people and smells and things that are not too nice, So the best Christmases you're going to have with them are going to be the next bunch, right? The nearest bunch. Where's the ad that's telling people that? Where is the you know what I mean? Where is the message that's telling people that? Where are the actual Instagram self-care people who post that shit and tell you, hey, it's not about you. Value the time and the things that are more important than your fucking having a bad day. Oh, I feel bad today. Who gives a shit? You think about this. Think about the limited time you have in the world with the people that you care about, right? So this is what I'm saying. If the focus was actually to have people live meaningful lives and actually have good lives, this is the kind of messaging we'd see.
Yeah. Less ice cream and Netflix on your own, and more play dominoes with grandma.
Basically, yeah. And isn't that much more rewarding than sitting around watching Netflix? Go and see your grandma. Go and spend time with someone who wants to spend time with you.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. There's two things there, right? Like, one, in the long run, that will probably be more rewarding for you, but also it's not all about you. You know, your grandma will want to spend time with you as well, because obviously when you get old, you know that, you're going to kick the bucket at some point. So, they will be wanting to spend time with you, and, you need to be considerate of that. Obviously, like, you don't have to spend time with everyone who wants to spend time with you, but you have to weigh that into account when you make a decision about whether you want to spend time with someone else or not. Right?
Well, the thing is, when grandma is off to wherever the next stage is of existence, like plane of existence, depending on what you believe in. I suppose you would say just nothing. So when grandma goes to nothing
in the ground.
Oh, mate. But when grandma goes off and hangs out with the Egyptian gods, because they were the ones that were actually right. It was the Egyptians that got it right. So when she hangs out with those guys, she's gone, right? That's it. She doesn't see you anymore, but you're left here. So you're the one that has to live with it. So even on a selfish note, it's not, you don't have to feel bad if grandma dies and you didn't make the effort to go and see her. You don't have to feel bad for grandma. It's you that's going to suffer. So even on a personal level, even though it's amazing for grandma that she sees you and it makes her happy, that makes you feel good too. But on the level of, if you don't do it, you will have to live on knowing you were a selfish piece of shit. That also should be a big motivation for you to pull your finger out and actually make an effort to see your family at Christmas and at other parts of the year. Because when they're gone, you're the cunt that's left behind, right? Not them. You know what I mean? You're the one. You know what I'm saying, man? I'm just gonna be blunt about it. People, this is the kind of messaging. This is self-care. This is real self-care. Putting shit on the table as it is and telling you to stop being a dickhead about it. That's what I think is actual self-care, and actually motivating people to get up and do the things they should do, not to tell them not to do the things they should do because that makes them feel better now. That's not self-care at all, is it? Dropping bombs here, man. Dropping the C-bomb too, hey? I just got worked up about it. I don't know. It just got me,
Well, it's Nana and Granddad, isn't it?
Well, it's just, I just think people don't appreciate what they have. And I think when you are part of actual self-care and actually living a meaningful life is appreciating what you have and acting accordingly. Obviously you can't be perfect all the time. And I can tell you from my perspective, for me personally, I've been drawn in by this self-care bullshit. It's not like I'm infallible.
So you're the pussy in the thumbnail.
I've been there for sure. And I'm sure you have too. I mean, it's tempting when people...
honestly, I don't think I've ever been in this whole self-care vibe.
You've never given yourself some kind of treat or whatever because you've thought, I deserve this right now, and then shorted some of your responsibilities for a bit.
I've had burnout for a period of a couple of months, but I didn't journal about it.
All right. My point is, well, I mean, I've been caught up by it.
I'm not bashing journaling as well, obviously.
But I've been there. So maybe I should have said this at the beginning before I started roasting everybody who's doing this. But I've actually been in the place where I took these people seriously and thought, oh, maybe I should focus more on myself. Maybe I should take a break, and started to treat myself like a little victim. And then I came out the back of it realizing that it very quickly devolves into a debilitation. Actually, you become debilitated by it because if your focus is always yourself and not on the bigger picture, you'll never do anything meaningful. You have to keep the focus on the bigger picture, and then the breaks they are difficult. I find it difficult to take breaks, and I used to think that was a problem, but now I think actually that's a good thing that I find it difficult, because then when I actually do it, it means it's necessary and it's more meaningful when it happens, rather than it just being all the fucking time. It should be a difficult thing because your focus should be the big picture. That's what should keep you motivated and moving forward. The big picture, the things that are meaningful and important.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, it's not that I'm done in terms of energy. I've exhausted all the stuff I've got to say on this topic. Like,
No,
I mean,
I'm just monologuing. I'm
one
monologuing. You're
thing-
my live audience for my monologue right now.
one thing like I could mention is we haven't mentioned the term anti-fragility yet. Like we've spoken about it loads, but that's
Did you make that up?
No, it's a term I've heard before. I think maybe it was coined by the guy. What's his name? Nassim Taleb or whatever. He wrote like three books. There was like the Black Swan. Forget the others. But anyway, I've heard that they are very good. All three of them. I've only heard positive things about them. But I believe either one of the books is called Anti-Fragility or one of them's just about anti-fragility.
So you've not read the book, but you're talking about it. What's that? How can people take you seriously now?
Oh yeah, but you can understand the basic concept, like like I've never read a book about speciesism, but like
Hey, you don't want to go down that road anyway. Definitely don't want to be investigating Peter Singer right now, guys.
Yeah. Species.
Every vegan should distance themselves from Peter
Singer.
Sorry,
love has no species, not species has no love.
Species. Yeah, love has no species. That's his new vibe. Yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, guys, I think the vegans who are listening here, I recommend you to go and check out Peter Singer's recent tweets. If you're not vegan and you go and check out Peter Singer's recent tweets, please take note. We want nothing to do with him at this point. At least I'm speaking for myself, at least, and I would hope many vegans do not want anything to do with this guy at this point. And he's not a vegan, by the way. Also, FYI. But
yeah, and it's like, from what I've seen, he's just handled the situation in the worst way you could have done. Like he's just stuck to his guns, and I'm just like, mate. Even if this is
not, just don't even. I don't want to go where he's gone today. All right, maybe another podcast we can talk about it. But I just.
Maybe
anyway.
on another podcast we can like rank animals and.
Oh Jesus Christ! Okay, if you know, you know. If you don't know, I don't even want you to go and look what he's been saying. But anyway, the point is, yeah, don't dig deep. Yeah, understanding at the
turtle. But I mean, I had nothing much more to say, so we can round off if you want. We were doing something.
All right. We should be okay now.
Yep.
I don't know what happened, guys. I think it was when we started talking about Peter Singer. Maybe his agents came and they were like, they got us.
Maybe George Soros has been funding him.
Soros found out we were here talking to 21 people about his mysterious ways. The WEF came in for us too. All right. Yeah. In conclusion, basically, look, having a bad day, feeling tired, feeling a bit shit. It's completely normal. We live in a world where our brains are not designed for the world we're in. Everything is difficult. Everything is like, information. There's distractions everywhere. It is literally just designed to make you depressed, anxious, and overwhelmed. That's the world that we have now created for ourselves. So I get it. It's hard. But it's normal to feel that way. It's all this stimulus. It's normal to feel that way. Right? So you don't need to try and fix yourself. You don't need to spend all this time wondering, what is wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? Why is this bad? The chances are you feel exactly the same as everybody bloody else. We're all just getting through and dealing with our monkey brains, which can't handle everything that we're throwing at it, right? That's all it is. So what I think you should be doing, in my opinion, or not should be doing, but what I would recommend for your actual self-care is not to treat yourselves constantly to just ice cream in bed with Netflix or anytime something's hard, right? What I think you should be doing, we should try to do, all of us, by the way, this is me included, and I fall prey to the Netflix in bed with ice cream from time to time, by the way. As I said, I'm not infallible, but I recommend we push forward. We try to push forward. We don't kill ourselves, right? Working, but also don't obsess and just over focus on how we feel. Keep going at whatever pace that means. So slow down by all means, but keep going forward. Don't stop. Pivot. Do something different. Do something less intensive if you're just feeling overwhelmed. But don't give in. Try not to give in. And of course, occasionally, there's nothing wrong if you do end up giving in and having a day in bed. I'm not saying that's the end of the world. But let's not make that a regular occurrence, right? Let's not make that a thing that we do every time things get a bit too difficult or we feel overwhelmed. Let's keep on. Let's try and toughen up a bit, because the world's not going to get any easier. That's for sure. It's not going to get less distracting. It's not going to get less, I don't know. It's going to get more shit, right? As we invent more and more ways to mess with our heads and distract ourselves and all this stuff, and as the big companies find more and more ways to get our money and fuck with us, it's only going to get worse. So we've got to toughen up now for the future, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would just add is that I think a greater form of self-care would probably be to get off all the platforms where you hear about self-care. That would probably do more good.
Unfollow these people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dillian gave a great tip, by the way, earlier. Sent a tip through. Thank you, Dillian. Recently, I bought a 3D printer and I printed myself a bunch of skulls and placed them in places where I usually procrastinate or just generally make bad decisions, the fridge, so they can remind me of my mortality.
That is fucking deep.
That's funny. I like that. I mean, that's a really
level.
good way. These are the kinds of methods and techniques that we can implement to try to keep ourselves on track. I've tried these kind of stuff before, and eventually, unfortunately, you kind of get used to seeing the thing that you've put to remind you, and then it becomes part of your surroundings. So you've got to keep adapting and finding new ways to keep yourself remembering that. And I'm sure Dillian will eventually forget the skulls are there, and then you'll have to find something new. It's a constant, put it this way, it's a constant battle to actually do self-care in the way that it makes sense. It's difficult. It's hard because life is hard and doing the right thing is hard. But that's what we should all be aspiring to, isn't it? Right? Going forward, even if it's hard.
Yeah, and also, like, I mean, it's like going through the hard things now is going to make the hard things later less hard than they. Well, I'm saying hard too many times, but basically,
I'm hard.
Yeah,
this conversation, it's done it for me.
Yeah,
rock solid.
So, all I'm going to say is, if I had a 3D printer, I would not be printing skulls as the first thing.
Oh God. Right. Well,
and on that note,
did you have a profound thing to finish on there, or was that it?
No, mine was get off the platforms that are talking about self-care, because they probably are worse for your mental self-care and maybe even physical health. Yeah. Yeah,
it's a good point. That's a good point. Well, thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Hope you found something useful here. Please, guys, get involved in the comments below this video once the video is ended, because then people will think that we're popular, versus having 0 comments because you all commented in the live chat. You see, nice. You've got to make us look like we actually have some followers and stuff. So please get your friend. So get down there, please, and do that for us. Thank you again for watching, and goodbye for now.